I think we're going to just speed through it. The idea here is, well, how are we deciding, which of these structures to pursue if you're an individual person? And the answer is a few things. One, as Farhan said, material participation is key. If you don't think you can spend that time, or if you're worried about the regulations, then maybe it's oil and gas over solar. Whoops. Solar doesn't have annual fees, oil and gas does, but those are baked into the calculations that we do. So maybe that's not a big concern. Both solar and oil and gas bring an income stream. They all have their tax benefits. You're breaking even, relatively early with both solar and oil and gas. So for us, very often what this comes down to with a CLAT, it's are you giving to charity otherwise? And if so, you should look at a CLAT. But as between solar and oil and gas, the major question is quantitative. It's which has a higher return. In addition to that material participation question. And I'm going to show you a set of calculations here. And what you're going to find is that across the board, in almost every case, solar is going to be the highest return strategy here. And oil and gas is also going to be positive. CLATs are going to be positive or not, depending on if you're giving to charity otherwise. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It's a chance for me to point out a cool new feature that we have, which is this ordinary income calculator. We also have, as you can see on the side here, comparison calculators for capital gains strategies and for estate tax. But here, I've put in some data. You're putting in $500,000 to these strategies. You live in California. You're married. Maybe you expect 7% growth and 2% dividends from your reinvested assets over time. And what this shows you is that solar, 5x's what you'd get if you did no tax planning. If you took that $500,000 and just paid your taxes, well, you'd have maybe $300-something thousand left. You'd reinvest that, and over 20-something years, you'd end up with $1.5 million, a little bit less after taxes. With solar, you take that $500,000, you put it into the project, you reduce your tax potentially by $600,000 just in that first year, and then you get to reinvest the additional savings and grow it over time. And as a result, it's worth talking about this on a separate webinar or a phone call with you individually, and we can show you this math. But in general, over 25 years, solar is just taking off compared to doing nothing. Oil and gas also does well. It about doubles what you'd get if you did no tax planning. It's not quite as strong as solar, but it does have, you don't have to spend the 100 hours, which is a significant benefit. It's also available until December 31st, which is something that, as many of you know, is not true of solar. If you don't get it together and make a solar purchase during the first half of the year, then oil and gas may be what's available, and you'll find that it's positive ROI. So it's worth looking at. I put into the inputs here with the CLAT that you're giving of that $500,000, you'd be planning to give away $200,000 anyway. And that's why this CLAT line is so high. If you're giving that money away anyway, you might as well put it into a CLAT. If instead we had said that you were not charitably inclined, the CLAT would have been no better, in fact, a little bit worse than doing nothing. And so again, for the run-of-the-mill, the standard situation where you're making good money, over $300,000 or $400,000 a year, but especially if you're up in the high six figures or low seven, solar is going to be the highest return strategy, bar none, in almost every case. Oil and gas is also going to be positive, and CLATs are going to be a little bit lower.
And one thing to add here is that the time horizon matters a lot, right? In a CLAT, if you're setting it up for 20 or 30 years, right, the CLAT is going to end. You're going to take the deduction up front, but it's going to end at the end of 30 years. And that's when you're going to have a big payout that's going to go into your pocket. Right?
And you can see that right here. That's a good call, Aaron. You can see that right here. I don't think these year labels are quite right. Over time, the CLAT's going to be doing nothing for you because you're not getting any distributions. But then at the very end, you get that big lump sum and it jumps up to outperform some other things. But if you're looking at a much shorter CLAT, then it doesn't have time to grow and you're not going to do nearly as well.
Yeah, the amount is not going to be high a lot, compared to oil and gas where you're, getting almost same depreciation in year one, but you have this upside of making your money back over the course of 4 to 5 years compared to solar where you're going to be positive in year one.
That's right.